notes that you sent me before, you mentioned SVG, right?
Yes.
And
I wanted to.
he's bringing a buddy this time.
SVG is going back to NASCAR, which I
So
didn't.
cool.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. I didn't see it happen. I
So
didn't see it
soon.
happening. I didn't see it happening because no one said nothing about it. But it
Mm.
makes a lot of sense, and I think the sort of publicity that Brodie got probably got the teams and SVG talking and
I
got the
think it
ball
was
moving
done the
again
second they crossed that pavement in Chicago.
in
But
Chicago. I
they're
mean,
very secretive, these boys these days, aren't they? They don't give much up. So
well, someone's paying the bill for it, so they got to get that, make sure that money's coming before they're going to say anything. But how good is it that? And it's another proper circuit. It's not an oval, so the it's going to be as fair as it can be, I suppose, for our drivers going back at a track that they don't really know. But I
it's
was thinking, how good is it for this, like for the year that Supercars is having, that at least there is probably the most exposure to our drivers that there has ever been
yeah, this is the best part is the exposure, but it's their Achilles heel, unfortunately.
for
Um,
the for
for
the our
supercars,
drivers or
and
them.
I know I've been very critical on supercars in this season
Negative,
this year.
negative Nancy.
Critical would be the probably
You're
nicest way to
the
put it, but
you're the Anthony of Supercars.
come on, dude. No,
How is it Formula One?
no, look, it is their Achilles heel because it's bringing exposure to our series. It's bringing exposure to our drivers. The only problem with it is that our drivers are also being exposed to other forms of motorsport. And it's maybe, well, there's two things to this. Our racing fans are being exposed to NASCAR, which is a true entertainment platform, in maybe a limelight that they never have before. Obviously, Marcus Ambrose went to NASCAR before him. I think it was Dick Johnson. You know, we do have history in the sport in NASCAR, but
But it was never as easily
no,
accessible as it is
this
now.
is ridiculous. Every single person who is a motor racing fan, whether you like the dirt, whether you like, the bitumen, whether you like Formula One or supercars, every single person saw what Shane Van Gisbergen did in Chicago. He was the most tweeted about person that week.
Well, I want to give you some
Um,
insight into how crazy this is. Most of our YouTube videos get, on a good day, 50 views,
yeah,
and maybe we get to nearly 100 views.
yeah.
Our video we released of SVG got 2,700 views
Wow, man, that's
on a
awesome.
little bitchy podcast. Like that
That's
shows
unreal.
how much crazy reach
That's so cool, man.
people are looking for SVG.
I know Giz, like he's a mate of mine, but I unfortunately think like it might not be possible to get him now because he might be living in America on the podcast. But
I
no,
have
look,
no.
what he did in Chicago was honestly just breathtaking. I still am lost for words for it. You got guys like Max Verstappen and Mark Webber and all that messaging going, what the hell just happened? We're watching this, Kiwi kid who races, tin tops in Australia win his NASCAR debut. It's just unreal. And again, this is where like there wouldn't have been a motor racing fan in the world that wasn't watching that race. So everyone now knows how exciting NASCAR is. Everyone knows that it's a really awesome package to watch. It's very entertaining, and a lot of the drivers now want to go compete in it. So I'm sure guys like Cam Waters, Will Brown, we know Brodie Kostecki's looking elsewhere, but some of our drivers are probably shopping around right now overseas, and I think that could be a bad thing for supercars. The other thing could also be bad is that our fans for supercars, which have been dedicated to this, two-make rivalry for the last 50 years, have now realized how bloody cool NASCAR is. And I bet you find that supercar ratings start to take a hit and the NASCAR ratings in Australia go up.
I think that it could be a possibility,
Mm.
but I also think there will be plenty of fans who, if they watch one restrictor plate oval race, will also realize that the oval racing
It's true NASCAR.
is in itself true NASCAR, but
So true.
also can be particularly like a lot more boring than what the circuit racing.
I struggle to watch oval racing. Like, I know I watch Daytona and that every year, but I think only because of the spectacle of it. You know, it's the same as why Formula One fans watch Monaco. It's boring
like,
racing at
that's
best,
exactly
and
what I mean. Like that's
we
what I
watch
mean.
it
Like,
for the spectacle of it. But
do you think say like a fledgling NASCAR fan who watched that race so the spectacle you get at Chicago, or even one of these the Indianapolis Road Circuit they're going to get race at in a couple of weeks, the spectacle you get there is so different. It's like a different sport from the oval racing, which is the majority of the season, and then also all the important playoff races are all on ovals as well. There is like with supercars, you know that no matter where you're going, the racing formula stays
the same.
like the same. Whereas NASCAR, you sort of have a few like you have a shit ton of oval races, a few circuit races, and one street race. Like there's 3 disciplines involved in that, which is great for our drivers going there to compete in those specific races. But to actually convert someone to the oval racing itself, I think is a much harder prospect.
It's a different ball game. You know, we saw Marcus Ambrose struggle heavily with this. He was a king on the circuits, but come oval time, he mid-pack at best. I think his best ever result. I think maybe he got a win on his last season. I can't quite remember.
I don't think he got an oval win ever. I think he might have got a couple top 10s.
Yeah, but so many people, you know, rate Marcus as one of the best drivers ever in supercars. You know, certainly my old man speaks very highly.
Who's that?
No, certainly my old man speak very highly of him. And a lot of the guys that grew up racing, you know, Marcus, Steve Johnson, Craig Baird, and all that, they all speak very highly of Marcus, that he is one of the best. And he went over there, and what he was able to accomplish in NASCAR in a short time that he was there, you know, on the circuits was, you know, amazing. He was average at best on the ovals, but it's a different practice. And if, you know, if our boys get a call up to go potentially race in the ovals, it will be very interesting to see how a guy like, you know, Shane Van Gisbergen goes, because obviously we rate him as one of our best drivers of all time. And I think the world sees that as well. I think he's got a very strong candidacy for probably top 5 drivers of the year. I think he got 10th this year in the global spectrum of, you know, driver rankings. So I think his win in Chicago puts him very high on that list. Well, if he's able to convert a race win on an oval, then I'm convinced he's the best.
Well, then this is going to be an interest. This is why I wrote "and friends," because we know Brodie Kostecki from our sport. If they didn't even know who Shane Van Gisbergen was, they're not going to know who Brodie Kostecki was, which is fair enough. But what Shane's great performance has done is, it's shined a spotlight on the sport. It's shined a spotlight on him. But now Brodie going there, whether he wants the smoke or not, has definitely got, like, you know, he's got expectation that people are looking at and
saying, as good. And especially if NASCAR fans all of a sudden decide to look up supercars right now and they see Brodie Kostecki's ahead of Shane in the supercar standings.
That's right. Like,
he's going to have a lot of pressure right off the bat to perform. And dude, I've been with Brodie, I've been with Shane on a hot lap, and both of those boys are just as talented as each other. So there's absolutely no doubt in my mind Brodie can't do what Shane just did. I've got no doubt that he's capable of it. I think the pressure probably will be more so on Shane to back it up.
Well, I think what is even more interesting of Brodie is that he's like, if he goes and enjoys it and then delivers.
Does he ever come back?
Well, that's the thing. Like, when you look at Shane's 33 now. I think Ambrose was about that age when he left as well. Like they had, and I believe that Shane is a more talented driver than Ambrose, just from the. I was also younger when Ambrose was driving, but I never saw Ambrose do rallying or the way he drove.
True, but it was different back then.
Very different. Even my dad, sport.
Even my old man says, you know, like when I was racing, you had one contract and you couldn't drive anything else. He copped a lot of, you know, slack one day for just doing driver training. He used to do driver training in his spare time to keep him sharp for obviously racing. And back then the contracts dictated what you could and couldn't do off the track. You know, you couldn't go
Yeah.
skiing, you couldn't play ball sports off the risk of injuring yourself. You know, couldn't go race in the 12-hour, you couldn't race in the 6-hour. You were contracted to race supercars.
And that,
And so, you know, I promise you, if those drivers like Ambrose and that back in the day were given the opportunity to go race other things, they would have. You know, I
Yeah.
think off my memory, one of the only drivers that was capable of doing maybe his own thing on the side, racing GTs, racing, you know, production cars and whatnot, was Paul Morris. And that's because
Yeah.
he ran his own team, you know.
Yeah. 100. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a different life back then. They were contracted to race supercars. No, contracted to race supercars only. You know,
Well,
so
I think
yeah, you
regardless,
say
like
the
us,
rally thing with Shane. I think that's in itself is a testament. He won his rally debut. It's
well, regardless of who is better, my point was more they were well seasoned,
true.
you know, in
So
supercars.
true.
They'd done a
They were
whole, you know,
household names. Yeah,
yeah, but also they were just older. Like
true.
Brodie is at the beginning of his journey.
Yeah.
So if he goes there, enjoys it, performs,
Mm,
and someone throws him a contract, he
yeah.
also then has the time to
Mm.
develop in that sport,
Into a household name in
or
NASCAR.
to even see if he can on the ovals. He has time to hone his skills.
That's a good point,
And then by
actually.
the time he gets to 30, which is 5 years, 6 years away, he's still going to be 3 years younger than Shane is now, or when Ambrose went. Like, then when he hits his 30s, he still has the time to, you know, see if he can make a mark on that sport. Like, it's at such a different age point, which is, I think, so cool that the opportunity is getting presented to him. And I've been very critical of Peter Adderton this year, just the smack talking he's been doing. So as I feel like he's got valid points, but also he's doing it too much, which is detracting as well.
But the one thing he has done is put Brodie on the grid there. He put his money. Yeah.
He always puts his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for Brodie, and it's backed by his money. And really, this could be the biggest thing in terms of like, I know that they're talking about going to race in Singapore next year, which is fantastic, but this could be an even bigger like moment for the sport, that if we can have another event where our drivers do really well, you know, America's on notice properly now as well, because this track is a track that we don't know, but their drivers know. You know, it's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah,
from,
it's not a one-off.
Chicago.
It's not raining. It's
No, it's going to be a big, you know, show and tell for us.
So
I feel
true.
like this could be a massive advertisement for, hey, we did it once,
We'll do it again.
We did it, and if we do it again, you know, the way that the American market looks at the quality of our races, I think will forever change.
It will, and you're so true about that. And then where I'll feel sorry for is, you know, guys like, well, I'm hoping that their life isn't just supercars, but guys like Chaz Mostert and Cam Waters, because we know how capable they are. Anton De Pasquale, you know, we know how talented these guys are in the right equipment.
Don't feel sorry for Chaz. If everyone fucks off, then Chaz can win the championship.
Yeah, true.
And I'll be a happy man.
Yes. Oh, look, nothing would make me happier to see Chaz win a championship. You know, but I think he even knows that he's good enough to do it against the best.
And I wouldn't expect all of our races to want to go to NASCAR. That's another thing.
Yeah, but not necessarily just NASCAR, but it would raise eyebrows to go potentially explore a lot of things. Other things. You know, we saw it a couple of years ago, and speaking of Chaz, he was in a BMW Academy program. He gave up pretty much that right to race, you know, as a factory BMW driver, to focus on his supercar career. And then obviously COVID happened and he lost his international sort of drive. But, you know, for guys that are in supercars, and unfortunately this whole Gen 3 thing has been pretty negative in their reviews. And so it's pretty evident that it hasn't really worked in the way that they want. And I think most of that's due to parity. And obviously they're working night and day to fix that. And they've made massive inroads. But we're still seeing disparity in between the brands. And
Yeah.
so obviously the racing's getting closer and closer and closer to the front. But we're still seeing, the Mustangs use their rear tires more. We're still seeing, that there's an aero disparity. We're still seeing a speed disadvantage. And these are some of the things that, if these are continuing to happen at Bathurst, you can pretty much rest assured say that the top 10 is going to be Camaro, and you might as well stay home if you're not in that brand. That's a big
Yeah.
issue for supercars
They're-
right now. And for any NASCAR fan turning on the TV to see what supercars is all about, it's not the best time for us because
No,
we're still sorting out these Gen 3s,
we're spinning our wheels in the mud,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm very interested with going to Sydney Motorsport Park this week because we've had a lot of races there. Especially, we had a lot of races there during COVID.
Yeah.
And
I raced
then,
there during COVID.
and like a hierarchy of teams has sort of that perform well there has been well established. Erebus perform well there.
Yeah.
Tickford perform well there.
Yeah. Will Brown got his maiden win there, I think.
Yep. And then Dick Johnson also performed well there
True.
before this new generation.
And
So,
do you know the team that doesn't?
Yeah, Walkinshaw.
Walkinshaw tend
My
to
boys.
struggle there.
My boys. So
My boys too.
I think what we're going to see this week, especially, is, or we're going to know somewhat better how the parity is working because there's nowhere to hide on this track in terms of tire wear,
performance, yeah,
high
and
speed,
tire wear.
It's a longer race as well. The teams that usually do well there, it's going to be interesting to see if they continue to do well there. And that's why I was going to do a mid-season review for supercars before this race, but I thought
let's do it after it. It'll be interesting.
It's going to be a really telling moment, especially I think it was unfair to do it after the last event because a lot of the Ford teams are sort of
kicking and screaming, and
they were saying we've developed the car to work one way. Now that all this extra air has
done the reverse effect.
We have to re-engineer the cars. So after a race weekend, hopefully they're going there with a better understanding of how it works.
We saw like you said, they raced a lot during COVID, and Walkinshaw really struggled at Sydney, and then went on to win Bathurst that year. So yeah, well, let's just hope for everyone's sake that they have a shit weekend and they win Bathurst this year. Hey,
I just want to watch a race and go, that was close enough for everyone.
I agree.
There was no teams that looked like they were struggling.
Yeah.
Everyone had a chance and they lost or won by their own merit.
I agree. I'm going to make a bold prediction that a BJR car will win one of the races. They tend to go pretty strong there.
They do tend to go very well there.
I'm going to go Heimgartner's going to win a race this weekend.
I'm not going to say Heimgartner's going to win a race. I think Fullwood's on the bigger
Fullwood's been pretty surprisingly good this year.
The last two rounds I have double taked when I'm watching where he's positioned in the race.
Yeah, same. I've had a lot of people saying like, has everyone else pitted or something? And I'm going, no, he's genuinely in second, third. He's genuinely in the top 5.
Fullwood and LeBrock have been like, I know Winterbottom won that race, but other than his win,
LeBrock's been one of the most impressive things this year.
The last 3 rounds, it's been Fullwood and LeBrock who I genuinely thought snap.
Yeah,
I think. Well, Fullwood I always rated, but he hasn't really shown much.
Well, I grew up racing against Fullwood, so I've always respected him quite a lot as a driver. I don't think he reached anywhere near his true potential at Walkinshaw. I think he was under the pressure and maybe didn't handle it so well, especially having a teammate like Chaz. That can't be easy.
Well, it's not like Percat's doing much better.
We're seeing the same thing with Percat. I was going to say that, and again, I've seen Percat perform very highly at the Bathurst 6-hour when I was his teammate, and I rate him wholeheartedly as a driver too. So it goes to show obviously how good, first of all, Chaz is. And then second of all, how much pressure maybe a top team is for some of these probably mid-pace drivers.
Percat does well at Sydney Motorsport Park. He wins race. He's won races there. So
he does, man. Well, he needs to.
I'm going to say Percat No, I'm not. Fuck that. I'm not going to say that at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
He's in a Mustang, don't forget.
Cam's going to win
Okay.
one of
I
the
rate that.
races.
I rate that.
I'm going to
He's pretty
say,
strong there.
yeah, I'm going to say he's going to win the Saturday night race,
Okay.
the
Cool.
longer one. And I'm going to say that Fullwood will be on
the podium.
He'll finish in the overall top 5 for the weekend.
That's cool. That's a cool prediction, man. You should put a get your phone out, put a little bet on that right now, because there's a good chance it's gonna happen.
I don't gamble because
Nah, you're good man.
Whenever I think that I should, and I get tempted, I lose all the money that I put on. So
It's a smart. Anyone listening, that's the best thing you'll hear all night.
yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'll go because we've been doing predictions for F1 and whatnot. I'm gonna go. Like I said, I think one of the BJR cars will win a race this weekend. I think it's gonna be Heimgartner. I think that LeBrock will snag a podium in one of the races. And I think we're going to see what SVG does best.